Hey y'all, how are you doing today? I wanted to hop on here and talk to my blended families out there. So how are you doing with your communication with your co-parent? Are you sticking to the topic? Are you making sure that your conversations are strictly about the child or children? And are you doing what's in the best interest of the child? Oftentimes, we have a breach in communication when we start to veer off and we don't follow those three things. If we are not communicating directly about the child, if we get off a topic when we are having a conversation where we're bringing up the past or we're talking about why we got here or how we feel about each other or what we wish would have happened or didn't happen, that is not a healthy way to navigate co-parenting, because what happens is if the person on the other end doesn't respond the way you want them to or the way you think they should, your expectations aren't aligned with what the delivery is going to be. It's going to be an argument. There's going to be a disagreement. Feelings are going to be hurt, and that is going to impede on you being able to communicate effectively about your child or your children. You also want to stick to the topic. You don't want to bring up things that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're asking. If you're asking for additional time, if you're asking for a phone call, if you're asking to switch the visitation plan because something has come up, stick to that topic. Don't bring up the past. Don't bring up what you think. Don't bring up why you think the person may be asking these things. Just simply stick to the topic of the question that is being asked so that you don't veer off and cause a disruption in the flow of communication. And making sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of the child or sabotaging the situation so that the parent can't have the child. So for instance, if the parent wants the child and it's during their parenting time, or you guys have agreed to switch parenting time, if there's an activity that the child now wants to do, it's important to let the child know that time takes precedence over those activities, and perhaps you can schedule it at another time or make arrangements for that child to, if it's a play date, to have a play date at a later time. If it's an activity with the group, perhaps they could try to schedule the next activity around the visitation time. But never try to impede on the other parent's time by setting up appointments or activities or refusing to allow the child to go visit the other parent, unless it's for a situation where you think it's a danger situation. In that case, you obviously want to seek legal counsel to try to do a motion to amend. And oftentimes you don't even have to seek legal counsel. You can go straight to the courthouse and file a motion to amend or contempt if you think those things are occurring. One of the things that is extremely important is making sure that you're doing what is in the best interest of the child. Making sure that you're not making changes or arrangements for the purposes of trying to do parent alienation tactics or to cause a barrier in the relationship between the child and their parent or the children and their biological parent. Make sure that when you're making decisions that you're considering, is this what my child needs? Is this healthy for my child? Because what everyone has to understand is that just as important it is for a child to have a relationship with a mother, is the same with the father and vice versa. Both relationships are equally important, and there's not one that's more important than the other. So we want to nourish that. We want to feed that to our children. We want to make sure that they understand that both relationships are equally important and both parents are working together so that they can ensure that their child has a healthy upbringing and healthy life. In some situations, you may be able to co-parent where you're able to pick up the phone and you're able to have a conversation about the child's grades, their behaviors, things that are happening with them emotionally, mentally, physically, activities. But then other times you may not have that. You may not be able to just pick up the phone and do that. So you may need to use something like either text messages, emails, or one of the portals that are available for parents to communicate. Our Family Wizard is one. Talking Parent is one. Those are two apps that parents can use to communicate information back and forth to in a safe environment so that all the information is in one place and it's easy to track. And it is best truly to communicate that way so that you're able to have the documentation of to what you communicated about. Sometimes we forget, we have so many things going on, and at least that documentation, we can go back and reflect and be like, oh yeah, that's right, we did switch that day, or we did communicate that. I'm sorry, I didn't recall that. I'm glad that we emailed it back and forth, so now I have the history of that. Other times, it could just simply be you need the history because the other parent just simply isn't cooperating, and you need this information to be able to show the judge when you're going back to make a modification or contempt. You can show the judge the way that you two have been communicating. It's very important to make sure that when you're communicating, you're not saying things that are hurtful. You're not saying things that are accusatory. You're not saying things that are putting the other parent down, but you're saying things that are directly related to the issue, and you're saying it in a respectful manner. This isn't an opportunity for you to go back and forth with one another and say hurtful things, because that doesn't benefit the child, and that isn't doing what's in the best interest of the child. When parents are not communicating efficiently and effectively, it opens the door for your children to be hurt, wounded, feel rejected, feel unloved, and also it causes them to understand the art of manipulation. It gives them a doorway to manipulate because they understand their parents aren't communicating. So they can go to one parent and say one thing. They can go to another parent and say something else. Another thing to consider when communicating with your co-parent is, how much information do I already have access to that doesn't necessarily require me to go through the co-parent to get it? For instance, if you have joint legal custody of your child, you can go directly to the physicians to get the information that you need related to doctor's appointments or any medical history issues or any problems that the doctors may see. You can go directly to the school. You can email the teacher and ask them for an update on their academics, their behavior, if there's any concerns that they may have. Sometimes we are engaging in conversations with our co-parent, asking them questions that they are preventing us from getting access to by not giving it to us. However, we can go outside of them and get the information ourselves. So we don't have to be totally reliant on the co-parent to give us the information. It will be great if they did, right? It will be great if you could pick up the phone and say, hey, I just want to know, or send an email. I just want to know how he or she is doing on their schoolwork. Sometimes you may have a parent who's willing to give that. Other times they may simply ignore the question because their thought is you can go directly to the teacher and find that out just as they can. So you have to learn how to navigate the co-parenting in a way that is most peaceful and healthy for the both of you. So if it's more peaceful to go directly to the sources, then just do that. Don't waste time. Again, this is for people who have joint legal custody, because otherwise you will not be able to have access to get that information by calling the school directly or the physicians. One of the things that you could do if you do have joint legal custody is show them a copy of your parenting plan or custody order as well as your ID so that they can verify it. But otherwise, you should be able to get the information once you provide that to them. So again, if you're having issues with communicating with your co-parent, consider, am I sticking to the topic? Is my conversation directly related to the child? And am I doing what's in the best interest of the child? Oftentimes, if you could answer those three questions truthfully and honestly, it will help you with your communication, and you will be more effective in communicating with your co-parent. I just wanted to hop on here and remind you to do what's in the best interest of your child or your children. Stick to the topic and don't bring in conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with your child or children. And enjoy the ride. Have a great day.